Tracking, alerting, protecting. This is WKYT News at 4.
Tracking some strong and even a few severe thunderstorms moving across parts of Kentucky. This could stick around through the evening. I'll have the very latest for you.
A Lexington man is killed during a home invasion. Now his coworkers are trying to support his family.
And new concerns about an Ebola patient in Dallas whose condition is getting worse. Why 5 schools are now keeping a close watch on children. Welcome to WKYT News at 4. I'm Jennifer Palumbo. Severe storms are hitting parts of the Bluegrass. Some of them have strong winds and hail. This is an eyewitness video of hail that a viewer sent us from Frankfort earlier this afternoon. That's why today is a First Alert Severe Weather Day. Meteorologist Jim Caldwell is tracking the threat on First Alert Defender. And Jim, you have a few warnings right now. Yeah,
a couple of active warnings out to our southwest, and some of that hail from earlier completely covering the ground. A decent coverage in different parts of Kentucky earlier today. Now we're tracking more thunderstorms that have that same potential. We'll go straight to the most active areas, and that's also where you're seeing a little more lightning as well. Not the most intense thunderstorms we've ever seen on Defender as far as the lightning is concerned, but remember, that's not a true severe weather element. It's something we certainly watch for, but it doesn't spark the warnings. For the folks in Marion and Taylor County until 4:05, so a few minutes left on this, but that doesn't mean you're going to catch a break. You're still going to have that heavy rain around, lightning, and that hail potential will all still be rolling through the area, maybe an extension to that warning. We look at it in 3D, and you can even see earlier these tops were a little bit higher, and the higher you see those, the more red and deep you see them, the more intense the thunderstorm actually is. Not the case at the moment. You can see it's starting to weaken at least a little bit, but still capable of producing lightning and, of course, very gusty winds associated with some of those. Just out from the Storm Prediction Center within the past few minutes, this area that I've circled here, which includes Lexington down to Somerset and all the way back toward Paducah, possible watch coming for this zone, which almost lines up exactly with what the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted as our slight risk area. Just the folks out in eastern Kentucky not included in on this. We'll watch for that, and we'll have the latest information coming up for you here in just a few minutes, Jennifer.
This afternoon, 2 men wanted for a deadly home invasion are still on the run. Lexington police say the men broke into Darnell Bates' home on Addy Street early yesterday, then shot and killed him. WKYT's Mark Barber tells us how Bates' co-workers are stepping up to help his family. That's our top story at 4.
Customers and those who worked with Darnell Bates here at Goo Goo Car Wash on North Limestone have set up a donation fund to help his mother and daughter pay for his funeral costs. Those who are giving are also signing this sheet of paper, saying their final goodbye.
Part of the team is missing here. You know, we're a team, we're a family here.
Employees at the car wash say Bates started working here 5 years ago and was just promoted to general manager 2 weeks ago. Police tell us he was shot to death yesterday morning by 2 home invaders. Investigators say when the men broke into Bates' house on Addy Street, he tried to fight back, but he was shot in the back. We're told the armed men were wearing dark clothes and masks and were last seen running toward 5th Street and Broadway. Officers say they are still trying to figure out why the masked men killed the father of 2. Co-workers say their frustrations are growing as their many questions go unanswered.
We just want to be brought to justice. You know, he really didn't deserve it. She was a great person, brightened up the room every time he came in. It's a horrible tragedy.
Trying to turn their pain into something positive, they started taking donations to help Bates' family.
Customers, people just walking up, donating, not even getting car washes, just don't want to contribute to the family for a good guy like yourself.
I'm told about $250 has been donated to the Darnell Bates Fund so far. In Lexington, Mark Barber, WKYT.
Investigators tell us Darnell Bates' cousin and a friend were also in the home when Bates was shot. We are tracking new details in an investigation into a fire in Harrison County. Kentucky State Police responded to Grays Run Pike around 9 this morning. That's just off US 62 outside Cynthiana. Our reporter at the scene now tells us 2 people have died. The coroner says both appear to be adults. The fire destroyed the home. We have a crew there, and we'll have an update on this fire that has turned into a death investigation coming up on WKYT News at 5. A new WKYT Herald Leader Bluegrass Poll finds Secretary of State Allison Lundergan Grimes back in the lead of the Kentucky Senate race. The new results show a shift away from Senator Mitch McConnell with just a month left before Election Day. Here are the numbers. Allison Lundergan Grimes leads with 46%. Senator Mitch McConnell has 44%. Libertarian David Patterson remains a distant third. The new results are far different from the 4-point lead Senator McConnell had in the Bluegrass Poll released in late August. The campaign ads in this closely watched race first started airing a year before the election. Now they dominate the commercial breaks with a month to go. Lexington Herald leader, political writer Sam Youngman points out that other polls show McConnell in the lead. But Youngman says it's been an eventful month for the Secretary of State.
She had President Bill Clinton in. She had this new ad out where she's shooting skeet and says directly to the camera, "I'm not Barack Obama," which of course runs counter to every message that Senator McConnell's campaign has put out. So it's entirely possible that all these things add up together to account for this very dramatic shift.
We'll take a closer look at the poll results on WKYT News at 5 and 6. You can also find more on WKYT.com. We're working on a number of other stories for WKYT starting at 4:30. Amber Philpott is in the newsroom with a look at some of the news in progress. Good afternoon, Amber.
Good afternoon to you, Jennifer. The leadership of Fayette County Schools is announcing today how they are responding to a critical audit. Last month's report by State Auditor Adam Edlin found no criminal activity, but Edlin says he is concerned about financial practices and salary increases at central office. Superintendent Dr. Tom Shelton has defended some policies that were criticized, but he also says he's determined to improve the situation quickly. Coming up on WKYT News at 5, you'll hear his course of action announced during today's special board meeting. It was a huge win for the Kentucky Wildcats, but one fan, a former UK football player, was seriously injured while celebrating. The university says Brad Durham fell from the upper deck of Commonwealth Stadium just before Saturday night's game ended. Durham graduated from Rockcastle County High School in 2007. He went on to play for UK as an offensive lineman. At last check, a family member said Durham was still in intensive care at UK. Coming up on WKYT News at 6, we will have an update for you. And health officials across the region met in Lexington today to reassess their plans for tackling the Ebola virus. There are no confirmed cases of Ebola in Kentucky, but officials say they are watching other affected areas closely. Officials talked about how they would react if Ebola showed up in the jail, how they would quarantine people, and how they would get rid of contaminated waste, and how all the agencies would communicate. Coming up on WKYT News at 4:30, you'll hear from health officials about the plans that they discussed. That is a look at just some of the news that's in progress. Jennifer, back to you.
Thanks, Amber. And speaking of Ebola, it's a story that's making headlines across the nation at 4. The director of the CDC briefed President Obama today on the Ebola crisis. And there are updates on 2 patients in the U.S., one in Nebraska, the other in Texas. Omar Villafranca is in Dallas with the latest.
The 5th American to get Ebola arrived in Nebraska after an overnight flight from West Africa aboard a specially equipped private plane. Health officials in hazmat suits transported 33-year-old TV cameraman Ashoka Mukpo to the medical center in Omaha, where he is being kept inside the nation's largest isolation unit.
He's enormously relieved to be here. Of course, it's still quite frightening, but he's hanging in and he sounds very strong.
Mukpo was on assignment in Liberia for NBC. He thinks he may have gotten splashed with Ebola-infected water.
He was disinfecting a car in which someone had died.
Here in Dallas, doctors confirmed they're trying an experimental drug on Ebola patient Thomas Eric Duncan. The company that makes the drug says it was an emergency step the Food and Drug Administration authorized. Duncan, now in critical condition, is from Liberia. He had direct or indirect contact with about 50 people in Dallas, several of them children. 5 schools where students are on Ebola watch have started using high-tech monitors to screen for fevers. Decontamination crews have finished work at the apartment where Duncan was staying. They carted away 140 barrels filled with items, including sheets, towels, and mattresses. Omar Villafranca, CBS News, Dallas.
A team of doctors in Nebraska is evaluating the U.S. cameraman to determine how to treat him. ISIS militants are moving closer to seizing a town near the Syrian border, despite airstrikes by U.S. and Arab allies in the region. More than 100,000 people in the area have left to take refuge in Turkey. In an interview with 60 Minutes, FBI Director James Comey said his agency and U.S. allies are doing everything possible to track down the ISIS militant who's been beheading prisoners on videotape. The group beheaded British aid worker Alan Henning in Syria and has now threatened the life of another American hostage.